This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Life and death U.S. Supreme Court decisions today. Justices ruled 5-4. The Constitution permits execution of convicted murderers who are as young as 16 when they killed. The justices also ruled there is no flat-out prohibition either on executing mentally retarded murderers. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver reports today's decisions about capital punishment. How young is too young to die?
Heath Wilkins of Missouri was 16 and a half when he murdered a sales clerk by stabbing her 8 times for $450, some cigarettes and liquor. Kevin Stanford of Kentucky was 17 when he repeatedly raped and sodomized his next-door neighbor, then shot and killed her. State courts sentenced both adolescents to death. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld those sentences and the executions of 24 other teenagers on death row.
The court has obviously responded to society's demand to hold youths who are mature enough to commit horrible crimes responsible for their actions.
Opponents of the juvenile death penalty agreed with the court's liberal wing that the execution of juvenile offenders violates contemporary standards of decency.
The People's Republic of China and the Soviet Union and the Ayatollah's Iran think that juveniles are too young to bear the full weight of criminal punishment.
But the court's conservative majority, led by Justice Antonin Scalia, concluded that the juvenile death penalty does not offend the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. And the same coalition applied the same logic to the case of mentally retarded killers, rejecting pleas for special treatment.
They simply don't have the same abilities that the average person does to process the information that they receive.
The court ruled in the case of Johnny Paul Penry, who raped, beat, and stabbed Pam Carpenter of Livingston, Texas.
I don't remember nothing about the crime itself, but the only thing that I do remember is about me being charged with capital murder.
The court said that Penry's case must go back to the Texas courts because the jury that sentenced him to death wasn't given enough information about his mental condition. But in an opinion by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, the justices said that in general there is no constitutional ban on the death penalty for the retarded as long as a jury finds a defendant knew that his conduct was wrong.
Today's decisions are important politically as well as legally, fulfilling pre-election promises Ronald Reagan made back in 1980 to appoint justices who would be tough on crime and increase the use of the death penalty. Rita Braver, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
A Supreme Court setback today for business groups and others seeking a cap on jury awards for punitive damages. Bruce Morton reports what the justices said about the increasingly high cost of hurting and the Constitution.
Juries have made some whopping awards in punitive damage cases recently. $14 million to ventriloquist Paul Winchell when a Los Angeles TV station erased the tapes of his old shows. Millions to Rock Hudson's lover Mark Christian because Hudson never told Christian he had AIDS. Today's case involved a small waste disposal company, Kelco, competing in Burlington, Vermont with a big company, BFI. BFI ordered its people to put Kelly out of business, squish him like a bug. Kelly sued and won $51,000 in compensatory damages, but a hefty $6 million in punitive damages. BFI said that was too much and appealed, asking the court to rule that the $6 million violated the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution's ban against excessive fines. But the court, by a 7-2 vote, said no. Justice Blackmun for the majority. The excessive fines clause does not apply to awards of punitive damages in cases between private parties.
Shows that the small man still has a chance against the big man.
Not every story has a sad ending.
It means juries can award whatever punitive damages they like in all kinds of cases.
Even private individuals, an offender bender, an automobile accident, personal injury for defective products, pollution cases.
Business and industry groups, which have been lobbying to cap high punitive damage awards, were disappointed.
It has driven companies out of business, has caused products not to be manufactured, and raised the cost of products to all American consumers.
But the court left the door open for another constitutional challenge, that these whopping punitive damages awards violate due process. So business is likely to try that challenge next. Bruce Morton, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
Business also took a loss in another U.S. Supreme Court decision today. Justices were unanimous in ruling a key federal anti-racketeering law used to fight organized crime may also apply to businesses accused of fraud. A new dimension tonight to the still unfolding, still spreading Federal Housing and Urban Development Department scandal. The latest coming amid the accusations of influence peddling, big so-called consulting fees for former Reagan administration appointees and other well-connected Republicans. Washington correspondent Terrence Smith has been tracking other accusations of HUD mismanagement and corruption and the hundreds of millions it could cost you. Terry?
Dan, a top HUD official, told CBS News today that taxpayer liability for defaulted loans on public housing is much greater than previously thought. Of the $9 billion portfolio, approximately $1 billion is in default under a scheme known to developers as gold plating.
Loans are being made for amounts greater than they justify. That projects are being promoted as justifying a loan far greater than the property is worth.
A case in point, Colonial House, an 1,800-unit project in Houston, mortgaged for $47 million, sold at auction after default for less than $9 million. It was one of several HUD projects financed with inflated mortgages put together by the DRG Funding Corporation, a Georgetown-based lender now under criminal investigation.
Just one firm had $530 million of liability. If there were others who were just as dishonest as DRG, the number will easily soar into the billions.
A former HUD official told Congress last week that the agency's mortgage portfolio was in a state of chaos.
It does boggle the mind, the disarray. Imagine this. There was no list that we were ever able to be made aware of what HUD owned. How could they have even asked for a payment? I mean, talk about open for fraud or abuse.
To get the gold plating scam under control, Housing Secretary Jack Kemp has barred DRG from doing business with HUD, suspended 2 other mortgage companies, and placed 6 more on probation for 6 months.
We want to avoid making any more loans that will end up in default. We want to act on any loans that may be on their way to default.
But Dan, that still leaves at least $1 billion in bad loans on HUD's books, with the taxpayer responsible for a staggering 80%. Dan?
Thanks, Terry. Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Aaron Hayes reports on the threat to the birds of Peep Patch Island, and Scott Pelley on the attempted murder of the best-loved tree in Texas.
The pain is in the back of the head, and like I say, in the temples, and it'll pound. Being a fireman is stressful, so I'd say stress could bring that on real easily.
Today, Jim Dane is trying extra-strength Tylenol gel caps. For pain like his, why take aspirin or ibuprofen when nothing works better than Tylenol gel caps?
I feel great. Yeah. I feel back to normal, ready to go. It's gone.
Extra-strength Tylenol gel caps. In the real world of everyday pain, nothing works better.
Checking in.
We interrupt this transaction for a reminder.
So what's your approach?
There's one travel tip it pays to remember.
We've got one good option.
Choosing the card that actually pays you cash. Cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
Daddy loves you too. Nice job, everybody.
It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
This is a phone. This is a finger. This is how easy it is for anyone to get 100% fiber optic long-distance calls that cost less than AT&T and sound better. Just call US Sprint now and talk with the best.
To leap beyond the world of worry. 50% of the Fortune 500 have placed their trust in the travelers to help provide financial peace of mind. You're better off under the umbrella.
A military tribunal in Havana held a second day of hearings today on charges of corruption and drug smuggling against a top Cuban general, a former comrade-in-arms of Fidel Castro. Correspondent Juan Vasquez is following the story from Miami.
It is the most sensational show trial in communist Cuba in 25 years. General Arnaldo Ochoa, decorated war veteran, an important military figure, now accused of helping the notorious Medellin cartel smuggle cocaine into the United States. The chief accuser is none other than Defense Minister Raul Castro, brother of Fidel. The issue, he says, is corruption at the highest levels. 7 prominent officers have been arrested so far. U.S. officials say they've known for years that flights from Colombia drop their cocaine loads into protected Cuban waters.
We see a plane coming in, it drops, it goes back, and we have to fly all the way around.
Then drug boats come in off the Florida Keys to pick up the contraband.
They get met at the Cuban perimeter. They're escorted in by Cuban military. They're kept there. The coke is loaded on the boat, and then they get escorted back out.
Convicted drug smugglers were even videotaped by U.S. officials as they bragged of paying for help from the Cuban Navy and Coast Guard.
They got the whole U.S., man, right on the edge there, okay, of the Florida. And they scammed the whole area out, man. And they tell you, go this way, go that way.
To Cuba watchers, the question is why Fidel Castro has chosen this moment to expose the Cuban role in international drug smuggling, especially since it involves a recognized Cuban hero. Ochoa has led Cuban troops in Angola, in Ethiopia, in Nicaragua. Many believe the real issue is a power struggle over the role of the Cuban military overseas, that the Cuban hierarchy knew of the drug smuggling all along.
Nothing of any significance goes on in Cuba without Fidel and Raul knowing about it.
As if to prove the point that other Cuban officials may be involved in drug smuggling, U.S. sources say the latest drop of cocaine over Cuban waters occurred yesterday, while Ochoa was in jail. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Miami.
Beijing's fiery student leader Wei Kexi has been on the government's most wanted list ever since the Chinese army rolled into Tiananmen Square. But today, sources in Hong Kong told the Associated Press that Wu and several other dissident leaders have escaped to the West. He left behind a statement saying a, quote, black sun had destroyed the spring of China's movement for democracy, but that the movement is, again, quote, young, stubborn, and uncrushable. Black sun, he said, I'm going to shoot you down. That's a challenge to China's new hierarchy of communist leaders who are still trying to wipe away the memory of the uprising and the killings. Eric Ingberg reports.
With a new boss in the front office, China's Communist Party was hastily running more flags up the pole to try to improve its bloody image. In the Beijing neighborhoods where troops enforced martial law, there was no trouble finding people to salute.
Applying every tool of propaganda, Chinese leaders have even borrowed one from American politics, the photo op. Western camera crews were invited today to do something that would normally get them arrested here, take pictures of soldiers.
Of course, that applied only to happy soldiers surrounded by happy citizens at this carefully staged neighborhood party. The idea being sold here is that martial law is no more frightening than a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. The problem for the regime in all that image polishing is right here. The first awkward attempts to convince the rest of the world that no one died on Tiananmen Square were such failures, the Army made another run at it today, adding some new wrinkles, like a guided tour for the press. At the monument where many students made a last stand, a colonel asserts there was no violence. But reporters see evidence an armored car has climbed the monument steps.
There are tread marks of a tracked vehicle here.
The colonel looks, then declares the steps were damaged by the students, not tanks. Reporters press.
Many of us were here the night before, and this was not like this.
Such questions are simply waved away, and press efforts to photograph these non-singing soldiers on the square but get some instant censorship by elbow. Evidence the leaders will paint a happy face on martial law only when there's something in it for them. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Beijing.
Another Soviet ship, this one a nuclear-powered submarine armed with nuclear missiles, ran into trouble in Arctic waters today, but Moscow says no one was hurt and that there is no danger. Soviet officials say a cooling pipe burst in the nuclear reactor aboard the Echo-2 class submarine. It immediately surfaced and switched, it is said, to diesel power, and the Soviets say no radiation was released. This is the third accident in 3 months involving a Soviet vessel off the coast of Norway.
There are vitamins you take because you feel you have to, and vitamins you take because you want to. Vitamins can be flaky, bumpy, crispy, crunchy, and taste so good. It's Kellogg's Product 19 with 100% vitamin nutrition. The only high nutrition flake made with the wholesome goodness of 4 grains, including oats. Kellogg's Product 19. Flaky, bumpy, crispy, crunchy, tasty vitamins.
Life without cholesterol. Give up the best things in life. What's left?
New Miracle Whip cholesterol-free dressing. Now you get all the taste of regular Miracle Whip and absolutely no cholesterol.
I do?
New Miracle Whip cholesterol-free. Now the best things in life are cholesterol-free.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And now see the light. Miracle Whip Light's cholesterol-free.
Sometimes minor mouth pain can be major trouble. Maximum Strength Ambisol gives maximum strength relief on contact. So before you can say Tchaikovsky, the pain's gone. Maximum Strength Ambisol. It's major relief.
This is one of 570 million refund locations for American Express traveler's checks. Now you can get a refund virtually anywhere there's a phone. Only from American Express traveler's checks. So if your bank doesn't carry them, go to one that does.
It's the law court's equivalent of a ninth-inning rally and a bench-clearing brawl. Lawyers filed action and counteraction in the matter of Cincinnati manager Pete Rose, who has been linked to illegal bets. And late today, baseball produced the basis of its case against Rose. Correspondent Frank Courier has our report.
Major League Baseball's 225-page report on Pete Rose was made public today, with key evidence the Cincinnati Reds manager gambled heavily on baseball. In the summary, Chief Investigator John Dowd concludes the evidence revealed that in order to protect his stature as one of the most famous baseball players in Major League history, Pete Rose employed middlemen to place bets for him with bookmakers and at the racetrack, and to pay gambling losses and collect gambling winnings, thereby concealing his gambling activity. Rose befriended, entertained, and promoted the businesses of friends, and through this arrangement protected his betting from public exposure. The report is at the heart of a lawsuit Rose filed last week, claiming the baseball commissioner already has concluded he is guilty. When a Cincinnati judge agreed yesterday in a controversial court ruling, baseball fired back.
In all this mythology about prejudgment and all this repetition of this nonsense, nobody's told me why it would be in my interest to prejudge Pete Rose. Why would I have any interest in doing it?
Baseball lawyers today filed an appeal to the temporary restraining order, which delays today's scheduled showdown between Rose and Giamatti.
We believe this order is appealable, yes.
But Rose's attorneys say in Ohio it is not, and a state judge agrees.
Unless you can get jurisdiction in the Court of Appeals, they would be disinclined to make any ruling.
The county court decision challenging the absolute power and fairness of the commissioner has left many legal scholars stunned. Historically, courts have been reluctant to interfere in the procedures of private industry.
For the courts to step in at this early stage in the process, short-circuit the proper process that the courts have upheld in a number of cases, is inappropriate.
We're in Pete Rose's hometown, and everybody loves Pete, so it would be tough to do anything other than what he did.
With a preliminary hearing coming up July 6th, the release of baseball's report on his gambling is certain to keep Pete Rose as defensive as he is determined to win his case in a hometown court. Frank Courier, CBS News, Cincinnati.
Former Speaker of the House Jim Wright made it official tonight following his recent resignation under ethics attack. Wright has now ruled out another run for Congress or any other elective office. In Washington today, encouraging and ominous developments about AIDS. The government approved 2 new drugs, one to treat an AIDS-related blindness and another which is useful in dealing with anemia, often caused by the drug AZT.
Some springs, gardeners think good weather's never coming.
It comes. But how do you make up for lost time? With Stern's Miracle Grow plant food. Years of testing at a major university proved plants fed with Miracle grow faster, stronger, produce more flowers and vegetables than with other types of plant foods. So even if it's been a cold, wet spring, you can make up for lost time and get more from your garden with Miracle-Gro.
Why can't they make a stronger flea collar?
Someone has. Scratch X. Look, compared to Hearts and Sergeants, Scratch X has the power to kill twice as many fleas. Compare. All these collars kill fleas, but Scratch X has the power to kill twice as many fleas, since it's government approved to work twice as long.
Yet Scratch X is safe for 3-month-old pets.
Remember, compared to Hearts and Sergeants' 5-month collars, the Scratch X 11-month collar has the power to kill twice as many fleas.
What's that?
Common Sense Oat Bran.
Common sense should tell you it takes these 4 boxes to equal the vitamin and mineral nutrition in just 1 box of total. That's more nutrition than any other cereal.
Now that makes a whole lot of sense.
Wrong number. Now I'll never get back to sleep.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Nitol helps you feel drowsy so you can get your Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
From sea to oily sea, Americans busied themselves with cleanups today. In Texas, crews raced Tropical Storm Allison to clear the remainders of Friday's 250,000-gallon oil spill in the Houston Ship Channel. In Rhode Island, officials said the 420,000 gallons of oil that leaked from a tanker off Newport Friday had largely dispersed or evaporated by this morning. In Delaware, authorities said heavy oil spilled in the Delaware River Saturday, congealed in the cool water, reducing danger to the shorelines. But the threat to wildlife is major, as Aaron Hayes reports.
For centuries, heron have been drawn to the shores of Delaware's Peapatch Island. Today, something else is coming: oil. This could mean disaster for the inhabitants of this delicate marshland: birds, heron, egrets, cormorants. They stood watch today as National Guardsmen and private cleanup crews set oil booms around the island. All day, more guardsmen were flown in. Delaware's Governor Mike Castle came to look it over. On some parts of Peapatch Beach, heavy clumps of thick oil have already landed and are melting in the hot sun. This is a bird sanctuary. Heron and egrets nest and feed their young here. Humans rarely interfere. But the oil, if it advances far enough, will interfere.
The birds that you see here behind us have a natural chemical balance, like a duck that makes it buoyant in the water. And when this oil gets on them, it dissolves their natural body fluids, and actually the birds will die of pneumonia.
This week, 300 guardsmen are expected to work hundreds of hours trying to keep the oil away. Their work is critical to life on Peapatch Island, to 8,000 birds and their young that live in the path of what is now Delaware's worst oil spill ever. Aaron Hayes, CBS News on the Delaware River.
Of Valdez drifted across these grounds, but the federal government, stung by criticism of its slow response to the Alaska spill, couldn't wait to help Rhode Island.
Can't speak for Alaska, but they're sure doing a great job for Rhode Island.
Hours after the ship ran aground, top federal officials raced to Rhode Island with promises of a quick cleanup.
We're sensitive to the fish habitat. We have some endangered species here.
This time there was no shortage of manpower as in Alaska, no shortage of oil skimmers or containment booms.
At this point, they've opened the faucet for whatever we want to receive, really, in the form of aid.
Ironically, Newport probably would have escaped major damage even without the tidal wave of federal support. The oil that leaked was so thin, most of it evaporated before it could be cleaned up, leaving behind only a residue of concern about the future. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Newport, Rhode Island. Come on, sport.
We interrupt this vacation
Charge it.
for a reminder. There's a better way to go. Just choose the card that actually pays you cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
Fabulous.
It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
This is John Overly, and this is his farm. It's the Benjamin Moore Paint Farm. Out here, John tests thousands of Benjamin Moore paints to make sure they'll withstand years of sun and cold, rain and snow without cracking, peeling, or fading. These tests help make Benjamin Moore the only paint good enough for the Reynolds family and their new home. They wouldn't settle for anything less, would you?
When something means so much, see your Benjamin Moore dealer.
Butterball turkey cold cuts. Any way you slice it, they're delicious. Butterball ham, Butterball bologna, or Butterball smoked turkey breast. They're up to 98% fat-free and all Butterball. So any way you slice it, it's
delicious.
Patients come in, they don't even tell me they smoke.
You know what I tell them? It's an addiction to nicotine. You need treatment. Today we can treat nicotine addiction.
Patients just don't know that.
It's a shame they don't come to us.
See your doctor.
With saw or axe, we routinely kill trees every day of the year. Then why are people in the Texas state capitol so upset over efforts by a person or persons unknown to kill just one tree? Scott Pelley explains.
Today, the nation's top tree doctors were called to the side of Treaty Oak, a 600-year-old landmark poisoned a few months ago. Despite the brown and dying leaves, the experts were encouraged by the patient's condition.
It looks a lot better than I had feared it would look, and it looks like there's a good opportunity for it to recover.
An unknown assailant attacked the oak with a herbicide. Since then, the tree has struggled to sprout new leaves.
Every time this happens, the tree is successively weakened and its energy reserves are lowered until it has no more energy left.
Thousands of people have visited the tree as if it were a sick friend, their sadness edged with anger.
It had to be an idiot or a maniac who would kill a child to kill a tree like that.
I don't think it's very nice to poison a tree.
Caretaker Bruce O'Neill seeks Texas justice.
I think he should swing from one of these limbs.
It is called Treaty Oak because this is where, according to legend, Stephen F. Austin, the father of Texas, signed a peace pact with the Indians. It is also where countless others have signed their own personal kind of treaty.
We just loved it so much we decided that this was a place where we just had to get married. So we came down here and this is where we got married.
Nearby, the legacy of Treaty Oak is nurtured by Gordon Israel. Last year, before the poisoning, he gathered acorns from the tree. 80 saplings have sprouted to replace the great oak if it does not survive. Treaty Oak now receives daily intensive care. It is sprayed with spring water to keep it cool and showered with wishes for a quick recovery. The tree doctors hope the oak can hang on until the herbicide breaks down. It will be a few weeks before they know for certain whether they have saved this monument, which was already 100 years old when Columbus landed in America. Scott Pelley, CBS News, Austin.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, see you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith. Tomorrow, the story of the combative heavyweight champ, the author of the new controversial Tyson book. Also, singer Joe Jackson, tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.